All right, shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Bachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, now as a great millstone. Peace and salutations to the elect. All right, I'm the brother Aina from GMS Dallas, and I'm here with the elder Yatazak as well from GMS Dallas. And we're going to continue the series here with Second Esdras. Today we're on chapter 12. And when you read, Second Ezra chapter 9 and 10, those chapters pretty much go together. You read one right after the other, and it's the same thing with chapters 11 and 12. As long as these chapters are, they do get broken down, in the following chapter. So definitely, Lord willing, should be able to get through this whole chapter. Abaratazah, being that we already covered majority of the, pretty much broke everything down in chapter 11. And that's pretty much what this chapter does here. But there's some extra stuff, as well in this chapter. So we'll go into it. So Lord willing, Abaratazah, this edifying lesson. Did you have any points before we get started, Zaquan?
Let's roll.
Okay. All right. This is Second Ezra chapter 12, verse 1. It says, "And it came to pass, whilst the lion spake these words unto the eagle, I saw, and behold, the head that remained, and the four wings appeared no more. And the two went unto it, and set themselves up to reign, and their kingdom was small, and full of uproar." Which, when you read chapter 12, it does go a little bit more, into the Flavian dynasty. Okay, and pretty much, during the time of um, the last two emperors or Caesars. All right, there was, there was a. I mean, honestly, if you really go into, which we're going to go into it, there was pretty much almost always some type of, civil war or unrest that was going on, but it was definitely on a high level. Um, during the times of the last two emperors, Titus and Domitian. All right, but we're going to continue here. Okay.
I said another thing you notice is that uh, 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 anytime Esau, I would say anytime Esau's been in power, the house has been divided. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So even though the kingdom of Israel was rent after Solomon, you know what I'm saying? It was always prophesied that we was gonna get back together. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but Esau's house has been divided from the jump. You know what I'm saying? He's never had a united house. It's always been split. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you got it.
Con. All right. It says, and I saw, verse 3, and I saw, and behold, they appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. So at the end of, the reign of the 12 Caesars, pretty much Rome started to go on a decline. Now, if you ask or look at scholars that will say that a couple of other Caesars were able to kind of expand the borders, like during the time of Marcus Aurelius and Commodus, like the reign of the five good emperors. The physical borders of Rome were expanded physically. All right, but the age of Pax Romana pretty much ended. You know, after the 12 seasons. And technically, Commodus ended the Pax Romana, but this is really the end. This is signaling the end of Esau's fall. Okay, because once Jake started getting up in there more often than Esau, that's when it pretty much changed over, and and it started going a different direction for Esau, right? Because he represents that eagle ultimately. Um, it says let me finish verse 3. It says, "And I saw, and behold, they appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. Then I awaked out of the trouble and trance of my mind, and from great fear, and said unto my spirit. Yeah, because when you read in the beginning of chapter 11, it talks about how it was a vision, or basically a trance that Ezra received. Okay, which again, was a fearful, experience. And same thing with Daniel. I think we went into it a couple of weeks ago. After Daniel received one of the visions, he pretty much was, like paralyzed with fear, you know, because they're seeing these actual, like, like kind of like, imagine if you had a crazy dream, the visuals of that dream can, trouble your spirit. Verse 4 says, "Lo, this hast thou done unto me, and that thou searchest out the ways of the highest. Lo, yet I am weary in my mind, and very weak in my spirit, and little strength is there in me." I'm going to look for that scripture in Daniel. I want to say, is it Daniel? Is it Daniel 10? It's like at the top of the chapter. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Well, it says it right here. The title, but Daniel 10:1, it says, "In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks." Right, to the point where it says in verse 3, "I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth. Uh, Neither did I anoint myself at all till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled." So he literally fasted, basically water fast, or at least no pleasant bread. It says, no, I don't know if he ate maybe vegetables or whatever, but he didn't eat no meat. He didn't eat no leavened bread. I would imagine pleasant bread would be like leavened bread, no wine. You know what I mean? For 3 weeks, you know. And then there's another part where it talks about okay, I think, yeah. I'll skip down here. Um this is let's see here. Verse 7. It says, "And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves." You know, it says in verse 8, "Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength." All right. So upon receiving these visions, man, this was like a big deal, you know, and it affects your flesh. You know what I mean? Of course, the words of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, were spoken after this, and he was ultimately comforted. But Ezra was going through a similar situation, right? It says, verse 5, "Lo, yet I am." This is back in Second Ezra 12:5. It says, "Lo, yet I weary in my mind, and very weak in my spirit." Remember, also he had been on like at least a three-week fast at this point. It says, "And little strength is there in me, for the great fear wherewith I was afflicted this night." Right? Imagine seeing a three-headed eagle with the wings and everything moving, and the eagle speaking. You know what I mean? That's a fearful vision, right? It says, therefore, verse 6, "Therefore will I now beseech the highest, that he will comfort me unto the end. And I said, Lord, that bearest rule, if I have found grace before thy sight, and if I am justified with thee before many others, and if my prayer indeed come up before thy face, comfort me then, and show me thy servant the interpretation and plain difference of this fearful vision." Because at this point, you know, uh, um, Ezra, he understood the program, like, the Lord deals in visions and then he'll break it down, just like how chapter 9 and 10 goes into. So he was praying for that interpretation. Okay. Uh, it says that thou mayest perfectly comfort my soul. Okay. He was hoping for the breakdown. And quick precept, unless you're gonna say something, Zaquan, I'm gonna get this quick precept. Don't
No, you
mind.
got it.
Wow. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This is Matthew 13 and 7, verse 16, actually, not 17. Both verses. Matthew 13 and 16. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them.
And so
And this is
how the Lord broke it down to him. It says, that's what I'm saying. Your ears are blessed. Your eyes are blessed. It ain't for everybody. Period. Point blank. You know what I'm saying? People will get offended because you understand the scriptures and they don't. I don't get offended when you don't understand the scriptures. I mean, I used to when I was younger in the spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do people not understand? But then as you grow in this thing, you realize that the Lord don't want to deal with nobody, he don't have to. You got it.
That's right. And throughout time, knowledge is being increased. That's why we're getting these understandings. You know what I'm saying? So, especially the fact that we're in these last times, what Ezra had to go through to get this, compared to us being able to go into this, and individuals watching this video can just take notes. You know what I mean? That's a blessing, right? And it's also indicative that we are in the last days of the last days. It says, verse 9, for thou hast judged me worthy to show me the last times. And again, I'll get another precept. I'll get this in real quick. Stay organized. In 1 John, in 1 John chapter 2, okay, and 18, it says, little children, it is the last time. Zoom in a little bit. It says, 1 John 2 and 18, little children, it is the last time. And as ye have heard that anti-Messiah shall come, even now are there many anti-Messiahs, whereby we know that it is the last time. Okay, so when Yahushua came on the scene and when he, did his sacrifice, all right, and was resurrected, okay, that was the, basically ushering in of the last times. Okay, shortly after the second temple was destroyed. Okay, and we're in the last times of the last times in 2026, and so the last times.
And I want to say this is it's referring to the last day of the man, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I want to say the last days of the last days. So when Yahushua came on the scene as the Lamb, that was the beginning of the last days. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And when you count up all the days, it's going back to the creation. You see, like we talk about, season 1 was the flood. Season 2 was the is thermonuclear destruction. Season 3 is going to be forever.
That's right.
You see, so these are the last days of our captivity. These are the last days of the first death, the second death. The last days encompasses a lot of things. You see, and it's the way that the Lord set it up. You know, you got it.
That's right. Yeah, the last times, man, and the last times, which is going to go into it, obviously, with the Roman Empire. Yahushua was born during the Roman Empire. All right. It says, verse 10, and he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. All right. It says, the eagle whom thou sawest, verse 11, the eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. Right. So
this is not a private interpretation. They telling him, that's what I'm saying. The Lord will show you a vision, and if you're confused by it, eventually he'll break it down to you, let you know what he was actually talking about. All right, you got it.
Yep, Daniel, talking about Daniel 7 with the eagle, right? Daniel 7 and 4. Okay, you can read it, take notes, write down the scripture. All right, we're going to continue on. Yeah, screenshot, whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? All right. It says verse 12. All right. And again, this kingdom is the Roman Empire. Okay. It says, but it was not expounded unto him. Therefore, now I declare it unto thee. Right. So, even when you go into this, he saw the vision, and, that was kind of the end of it. You know what I mean? But basically, Ezra is having more of a intimate, like back and forth, because of the times we're approaching now. Daniel, oh, time for a handy map illustration. Daniel, okay, as you can see, he was around, all right, pretty much. Which when you read Daniel, the first chapter, it talks about how Daniel was a very young man when he was taken away from Jerusalem. Okay, he was taken away and into Babylon. So he pretty much was prophesying the whole time in Babylon, all the way up unto the return of Israel, or excuse me, the southern kingdom to Jerusalem. So he was prophesying for a long time, as you can see here, and basically towards the end of Daniel's life, that's when Ezra pretty much came around. So he was you could say like a close contemporary. Like they weren't prophesying at the same exact time, but um, if they weren't alive during the same time, it was shortly afterwards Ezra was around. I don't. It might even be. They might even have been around during the same a time, but obviously Daniel, was first, and then as Ezra was after him. Okay, so that's why it's referencing Daniel, because remember Daniel, like when you go, for example, just for example, to Daniel 5, okay, with the transition of power from the Babylonians to the Medo-Persian Empire. You can see here, right before Belshazzar was killed. All right, and and we're talking about Belshazzar, the grandson. I believe it was like the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. He was the last, king of the Babylonian Empire before they got taken down by Darius the Mede. But you can see here, Belshazzar commanded Daniel to be clothed with gold, all right, chain of gold and scarlet, and made a proclamation that he would be the third ruler in the kingdom. Even though, ultimately kind of fell the same night, he had a high level of position. And even when you go to the next chapter, in chapter 6, right, Darius the Mede, the following king who ruled after Belshazzar, he also set Daniel over 120 princes, and Daniel was the first of 3 presidents. So everybody pretty much was, you know, uh, like reporting to Daniel, basically. You know what I mean? Kind of like the situation
Mhm.
uh,
With Joseph. Yep.
Joseph. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The water. Just a side note, but anyway. So my point to bringing that out was because Daniel was of course, he was very well known, right? So it says, verse 12, but it was not expounded unto him, therefore I declare it unto thee. Verse 13, it says, behold, the days come that there shall rise up a kingdom. So this is the breakdown of chapter 11. All right.
Right. Proof that you can write something down and then explain it later. It can
Con.
be explained later. A lot of the prophets didn't understand what they wrote down, but through reincarnation, the Lord brought them back so they can explain what they wrote down. You
Yeah.
see, and people don't want that's a big miss when it comes to people. You see, when it comes to reincarnation, they don't have that understanding. They think you're gonna come back as an ant or a cricket or something like that, when that couldn't be further from the case. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, the spirit of the prophets is subject to the prophets. That's how you tie that together. You got it.
Con. All right, verse 13. It says, behold, the day shall come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth. Because remember, Daniel was alive during Ezra was alive during the Medo-Persian Empire. Okay. But you still had the Grecian Empire, then the Roman Empire to come. So it was still, I don't even know, it might have been just kind of becoming a republic at this time that Ezra was alive. But it says, there shall rise up a kingdom upon the earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it, which of course is the Roman Empire. In that same time, excuse me, in the same shall 12 kings reign, one after another, going into the 12 Caesars, the 12 wings, 12 feathers, right? In chapter 11, it says, whereof the second shall begin to reign and shall have more time than any of the 12. So it's going to reference, like going all the way down to like verse, 29. These next 15 verses is going to reference all of chapter 11. All right, so you can kind of go back and forth with it. But we obviously covered this last lesson, or the last 3 lessons, you should say. But it says, yeah, the second, which is talking about Augustus Caesar. Okay, he was the second. They say Augustus was the first Caesar, but Julius Caesar was the first Caesar. Okay, then Augustus reigned after him. All right, it says, and he shall have more time than any of the 12, which was true. All right, he reigned over 40 years. Talking about Augustus or Octavian, right? It says, and this do the 12 wings, signify which thou sawest. Okay, each of those 12 Caesars. All right. Verse 17, as for the voice which thou heardest speak, and that thou sawest not go out from the heads, but from the midst of the body thereof, this is the interpretation. And I think this is one of the things that I'm not sure if we went into or not when we covered chapter 11, how there was civil wars going on. You know what I mean? Constantly, during this time. I mean, it was like organized chaos, kind of like a lot like how America is now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's no peace outside of America, right? But you have the ruler of America saying that, or excuse me, declaring himself the permanent creator of the Board of Peace or whatever it's called. You know what I mean? But then you have a Department of War, so it's just contradictory. Um, and it says, verse 18, after the time of that kingdom, there shall arise great strivings, and it shall stand in peril of failing. Yeah. So what I did was, I wanted to pull this up here. I just typed in Google, like, list of Roman civil wars. You can see it's a long ass list. I'm gonna start from the top. Uh, it says, this list is on Wikipedia. It says this list of Roman civil wars and revolts includes civil wars and organized civil disorder, revolts, and rebellions in ancient Rome.
Yep.
And
And
ancient,
a civil war is a divided house. Keep that in mind. The Lord
right,
has said it. The Lord said it out his own mouth. A divided house cannot stand.
right,
So you
yeah,
see why these hoes finna lose.
kind of. And this is not a list of external wars and battles. This is talking about internal. Okay, it says, from the establishment of the Roman Republic in 509 BC until the first century BC, which is the time of the 12 Caesars by and large, there were a sparse number of civil wars. Um, it says, but with the crisis of the Roman Republic, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. First century BC would have been it would have been during the Roman Republic. All right. But it says, but with the crisis of the Roman Republic, which ushered in the Roman Empire, which was the time of the Caesars, a period of considerable political instability began. So, yeah. So, basically, when it was the Roman Republic with the Senate and all that stuff, First Maccabees 8, it wasn't, that tumultuous, but with the Caesars time period, it was that's when shit started getting shaken up. It says, the cause of the late Roman Republican civil wars was contested, as is whether the wars were the cause of or caused by the end of the Roman Republic. Regardless, here's the point, or one of the points: a nearly constant stream of civil wars marked the end of the Roman Republic and heralded the rise of the Roman Empire in 27 BC. It says the first century of empire was marked by widespread revolt through territory Rome had captured in the preceding centuries. Okay, so that's what we're going to go into. So we're going to scroll down here. So you can see there's a couple, one or two at each century, but then when you get to first century BC, all right, leading up to the time of Julius Caesar, okay, which he became Caesar in 40 something AD, right? Caesar Civil War. Look at all this shit. All this stuff that happened in 49 BC. All this stuff, right? Caesar's Civil War, multiple sieges, battles, right? You had revolts, okay?
I'll
You know
say,
what
if
I
you want to
mean?
watch a show that goes into all this, you can go watch that Spartacus series. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
It was that transition between the Greeks and the Romans. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? And it shows you that Jake was caught in the middle of it. Now Spartacus and his men, they were all slaves during that time. But to get history on that, because they go into Julius Caesar first coming on the scene. They even mention Tiberius. It goes into it. You know what I'm saying? I want to say it's like 4 or 5 seasons of that Spartacus series, but all these key players, the first triumvirate, they touch on all that shit in that series.
Con, yeah. There's a lot going on. You can see there was a revolt, in Judea, right? In 4 BC. Um, and then you got first century, all of this stuff. And this was during the life of Yahweh Shah. This is, during the lifespan of Yahweh Shah. There was a lot of stuff going on, you know, riots, revolts, revolt in Thrace, people trying to usurp authority over others, battles, right? And then if going all the way down to where I want to get the year of the four emperors, okay? You can see that here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The siege of Masada, where the Sakari were defeated by the Romans, okay, in 73 AD. The first Jewish Roman war happened. That revolt happened during the year of the four emperors. So it was a lot of stuff. It was just a lot of. It was like a tempestual storm going on during this time. And when you go back to the scripture, right? Um, in the middle of verse 18, it says, nevertheless, it shall not then fall, but shall be restored again to its beginning. Because even during the time of that first triumvirate with Julius Caesar at the head, okay, um, basically, again, there was a lot of they ended up going, those three heads ended up pretty much going to war with each other at the end, you know, and killing each other. So and then the second feather, right, or the second emperor, Augustus Caesar, he ended up, killing the ones who killed Julius Caesar. So it was just a lot, right? But it didn't fail. It was restored, okay, and it kept continuing to go on. All right, says
That's
verse
all.
19.
That also show you that your vote don't matter.
Right, Con.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't want the nigga in office. They just go kill him.
Facts. Look what happened to Trump. I mean, whether that was you know what I mean? Like that nigga got shot at. Supposedly. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? When have you ever seen Obama get shot at or Bush get shot at? The worst
Nah.
Bush got was a shoe thrown at him. And he dodged
Yeah.
that motherfucker.
Yeah. He threw both of them.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm
So
saying?
what's the use of bringing just throwing one when I brought two?
Right. Imagine, that wasn't the way that the Lord wanted it, but just imagine if if that was a real bullet and if Trump actually did get popped, he wouldn't be a president right now. And maybe all the stuff that's happening right now with Iran and Israel and the United States involving, that maybe probably wouldn't even be going down the way it's going down. So the Lord is working in every single individual detail, and we got to
Mm-hmm.
continue, to remember that, right? So see, we're right on the time. Okay, we're good. All right, so continuing on here in verse 19. It says, and whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation. Excuse me, those 8 basically those 8 other kings that were not part of the first triumvirate or the Flavian dynasty, right? And so
little side note. That's what I'm saying. When it comes to let he that had wisdom count the number of the beast, it's a man. Let he that had wisdom, right? That's like saying this is the interpretation thereof, right? When you read Revelation 13, yeah, this is the interpretation thereof. And you let the man with wisdom tell you what it is. Not listen to a bunch of guessing sons of bitches.
Right.
If it's different every time I ask you, your bitch ass is guessing.
Facts, yeah.
And you wrong, and you wrong every time. So each attempt that you try to break it down and it's not what we told your stupid ass it is, guess what? It's not gonna change. It's not gonna change. Esau is not gonna do what you say he's gonna do. He's gonna do what the Lord said he's gonna do. Go ahead.
Yeah, the scriptures talk about, continuing those things that we have heard, that we've been taught. What is it? Knowing of whom thou hast learned them. I think that's
and for all you sucker MCs out there, that's what I'm saying. If Nate taught you that the mark of the beast is anything but the chip, and you say I'm just gonna teach what I was taught, you are gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
Examine it for yourself, stupid motherfucker.
Right.
Here it is. This nigga breaking down the prophecies wrong and telling you can't even look it up for yourself. Whatever. That's why I say whatever. It's going to be a lot of dead Israelites. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick precept. 1 Timothy 3:14. It says, "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them." You see, so if you've tasted that the Lord is gracious, if you say you believe and you got the Spirit, back in July of 2000 whatever, but then a year later, 2 years later, 10 years later, you start to second guess, you got to rebuke that. You got to rebuke that demon. You know what I mean? So you don't want to be deceived. You don't want to be reprobate, right? So going back to 2 Esdras 12 and verse 20, all right, it says, verse 20, it says that in him there shall arise 8 kings, whose times shall be but small and their years swift. Okay. So again, those kings that had those shorter reigns, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, even Caligula, Nero, like they all ruled like under 10 years. It says, and 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. Now that 2 is going into the last 2 out of the first 6. So I think that was Claudius. Yeah, Claudius was after Caligula, so it would have been Claudius, all right, and Nero. All right, those were the last. Those were the last 2 of the first 6, if that makes sense, right? The middle time approaching, and after Nero's death, all right, and his suicide in 68 AD, all right, he was that was the middle time basically approaching. But it's so crazy that quote unquote middle time, the actual amount of years was so much shorter than the first half. Like basically what I'm trying to say is the first 6 Caesars reigned way longer than the last 6. And so it says 4 shall be kept until their end begin to approach, right? Which that 4 that should be kept is the 4 emperors, the year of the 4 emperors in 69 AD, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian, right? And it says, but 2 shall be kept until the end, which is Titus and Domitian.
Yep.
Right. And that's how that basically that eagle, that's how that timeline went with the eagle, right? It says, verse 22, and whereas thou sawest 3 heads resting, all right, this is the interpretation, all right? It says, verse 23, in his last days shall the Most High, again, that reference to the last days going into basically the time, after Yahushai's death, burial, and resurrection. All right, is because we're in the last days now, of course, too. The last days are the last days. All right, but the last days of this man of this man's kingdom started. All right, when Yahweh Shai, came on the scene. All right, it says, in his last days shall the Most High raise up three kingdoms, which is just three kings, which is the Flavian dynasty, right? Titus, or excuse me, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. All right, it says, and renew many things therein, and they shall have the dominion of the earth. Excuse me. All right, it says, and as a matter of fact, I'm gonna read one more verse. I'm gonna get a precept. It says, and of those that dwell therein with much oppression, above all those that were before them. Because again, with the Roman Empire, the city of Rome, after the siege of Jerusalem, that was when the Roman Colosseum was built. That was when a lot of these things within the city of Rome were built that are lasting structures today, and they got it through great oppression. We read about that in chapter 11, the end of chapter 11. You know what I mean? It also talks about that in Daniel, the ninth chapter, verses 24, 25, 26, it talks about that as well. Okay. And it says, above all those that were before him, therefore are they called the heads of the eagle, because they had that power and that dominion. Now, I want to get a couple precepts. All right. I want to get a couple precepts here. First precept I want to get is Luke 21. No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get this one first. In Luke 19. Okay, Luke 19. Had this written down. Okay, Luke 19, and let's get the red letter here. All right, and 28, right? Is Yahushua entering in to Jerusalem, basically for the last time, okay, before he was crucified. All right, it says when he had thus spoken, all right. I'm sorry. Um, let me see. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, this is when he walked in with the coat. Yeah, yeah. So this is his last trip to Jerusalem, approaching the Passover. All right. Shoot, it could have been around this time of year. The Passover's coming up in 2 weeks. Right. But it says, and when he had thus spoken, he went before, ascending up to Jerusalem. Okay, so it lets you know he was going up, towards Jerusalem, right? And dropping down to verse 41, it says, and when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it. Here's the point in the next couple verses. It says, saying, if thou hadst known. So Yahweh cried over the city, like he's looking at Jerusalem and he's like, damn, he saw like how doomed it was, how doomed the city was. Like he knew, like, all right, if we're looking at 30 AD, right? That was when, roughly when Yahweh was crucified, 33 AD, somewhere around there. 70 AD was what, 30, not even 40 years away. The siege of Jerusalem wasn't even 40 years away. I mean, there was people that knew of Yahweh and still lived to see, the times that, of the destruction of that second temple, right? So he was, seeing that Yahweh and understood what was happening, or what was going to happen. It's verse 42, it says, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace. Because what does Jerusalem mean? Teaching of peace. Okay, but Israel didn't understand. Okay, they didn't understand that they were basically leading, walking down the path of destruction. Destruction was prescribed, all right, for Jerusalem again. All right, this is like almost 500 years after, um, the rebuilding of the temple and the foundation of the temple in Jerusalem as a whole, right? And it says in verse 43, for the days shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee. He's talking about 70 AD right here. He's talking about the siege of Jerusalem, the what is it, the Jewish Roman wars, right? It says that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee round and keep thee on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. You see, so the reason why Jerusalem, the second temple was destroyed, the city was destroyed, ultimately was because when Yahushua was on the scene, they didn't receive him. You see? So, I found out heavy, like this specific, I don't know if this appears in any other a gospel account, but this was a precept that really stood out to me when you consider how when it talks about how the Flavian dynasty was going to rule with much oppression, because they were the ones who were responsible for destroying Jerusalem during that time. Okay, verse 25, it says, "For these are they that shall accomplish his wickedness, and that shall finish his last end." You see that?
Ooh.
You see? And so that was all prescribed in prophecy. I'll just rattle these off real quick. These precepts, to write
But
down.
you got other Israelite groups that either won't touch it at all, or they'll think it's talking about America, and it's not. That's another thing that's wrong with all these other false groups out there, man. Their timeline is off because they don't have an understanding of prophecy.
Right.
You ask them niggas to break down the same chapters that we don't went through. They'll call you a rapist and keep it moving.
Right.
Accuse you a pedophilia and go eat.
Through.
You got it.
That's on them, man.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be a lot of dead Israelites.
Kind. Yep. Just like it was in the past. Nothing new under the sun. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? Nothing new under the sun. You know what I mean? We're sighing and crying just like how Yahushua was. You know? It says, verse 26, and whereas thou sawest that the great head appeared no more, it signifieth that one of them shall die upon his bed, and yet with pain. All right, because when you go into the death of Vespasian, all right, he died of severe diarrhea. All right, let's just Google it real quick. All right, how did Vespasian die? Okay. All right, it says it here. You can see.
Oh, my stomach bubbling. Looking ass.
Oh shit!
Yeah, he looking at the blind. Watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this.
Yeah, that boy was in Poot City, man. All right, and
Yeah, similar to how Antiochus went out. Rotted from the inside out, pretty much.
yep, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, let's go into it real quick. Uh, let me see here. He reigned for 10 years. Death. Okay. In his ninth consulship, Vespasian had a slight illness in Campania, and returning at once to Rome, he left for Aquae Cotile and the country round Rete, where he spent every summer. However, his illness worsened, and he developed severe diarrhea.
Bro, think about that, bro. You ain't never heard nobody die from diarrhea? This nigga had so much. This nigga diarrhea was so severe he died. I don't know if you ever had diarrhea before, but shit, it's uncomfortable, but you ain't thinking you gonna die. But hey, the Lord can kill a nigga however the fuck he want.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, because it says uh he shall die upon his bed with pain. You know what I'm saying? And it says here in his death, with the feeling of death overwhelming him on his deathbed, he incited ve puto Dios fio. which means, dear me, I think I'm becoming a god.
Wrong again.
It says then
Wrong
according,
again.
right. Yeah, it says then according to Suetonius is the 12 Caesars, which we'll get an excerpt about from this account here shortly. It says taken on a sudden with such an attack of diarrhea that he all but swooned, and he said an emperor ought to die standing. And while he was struggling to get on his while he was struggling to get on his feet, he died in the arms of those who tried to help him. On the ninth day before the Keelings of July, in the at the age of 69 years, and so yeah, he knew he was dead. Like he knew he was cooked, and he was like, "Nah, fuck that. I want to die on my feet." As he tried to get up, gave up the ghost.
Nope,
You
not quite.
know, right,
Came up, shout. Yeah,
right,
came up, shout.
right. You know what I mean? So yeah, so um anyway, uh let's go back to the scriptures here. All right, it says verse 27, for the two that remain shall be slain with the sword. Now, this was the thing that I had to look into a little bit more. The two that remain obviously are talking about Vespasian's sons, Titus and Domitian, right? So let's look into their death real quick. Let's read verse 28. It says, for the sword shall devour, for the sword of the one shall devour the other. So it says, the sword of the one shall devour the other. All right. So um, when you go into, here we go. When you go into, I had it pulled up. Ah, okay. Um, let me go back one page. Thought I had it on a separate deal. All right, I'll have to remember this. 83. Sheesh. Let's do this. Okay. All right. I'm gonna read his about the death of Titus, which was Vespasian's son. It says he set out for the Sabine territories, but fell ill at the first posting station, where he died of a fever, reportedly in the same farmhouse as his father. Allegedly, the last words he uttered before dying were, "I have made but one mistake." Titus had ruled the Roman Empire for just over 2 years, from the death of his father in 79 to his own in 81 AD. So he only ruled for 2 years. It says he was succeeded by Domitian, whose first act as emperor was to deify his brother. Now, what I learned was that they don't really historians don't really go into a lot about how uh, Titus and Domitian basically didn't have like a great relationship during the time of Titus's death. All right, but it was evident it was evident when you go into certain accounts, historic accounts.
A divided house.
Right, right. Yeah. So because it says that he died of an illness, but when you go into what was the number? 83, right? Was it that one or was it 84? It was one of these. Hold on, let me go down to it was on this one here. Yeah, 83. All right. So I'm gonna click this reference here. All right. So this is from Suetonius, The Lives of the Caesars. All right. Basically, you know, just you know, information on the Caesars. And I was reading right here. Okay, this paragraph right here. So what is this? The life of Domitian in this book, The Lives of the Caesars. All right, the part of the life of Domitian. When you go down, this I don't know, paragraph 2 or whatever. Here it says, on the death of his father, all right, which Titus's father was Vespasian. He hesitated for some time whether to offer a double uh, largus, which I'm not sure what that is. Somebody can look it up, to the soldiers, and he never had any compunction about saying that he had been left a partner in the imperial power, but that he will had been tampered with. But excuse me, but that the will had been tampered with. So there was some, I don't know, maybe some discrepancy in his father's will. Obviously, those two sons, Titus and Domitian, uh, with Titus being the one that ended up becoming the Caesar over Domitian, right? It says, and from that time on, he never ceased to plot against his brother secretly and openly until Titus was seized with a dangerous illness. All right, so there was basically some scheming shit going on between Titus and Domitian. Okay, plotting against one another. Okay, it says until Titus was seized with a dangerous illness, when Domitian ordered that he be left for dead. So basically like when Domitian, his brother, found out that Titus was ill, he ordered, like, whoever, you know what I mean, he was over it, to just leave him, because it said how he was out in one of the posts or whatever. He wasn't in the city, he was out. They said, no, leave him, just leave him. Right? It says before he had actually drawn his last breath. All right. It says, and after this death, he bestowed no honor upon him save that of deification. And he often assailed his memory in ambiguous phrases, both in speeches and in his edicts. So he didn't really have too much regard his brother Domitian, talking about Domitian. You know what I mean? Like, it was a convenient thing when Titus got sick, and Domitian didn't want any help to come to him. You know what I mean? So, that could be counted as, the sword of the one devouring the other, even if Domitian wasn't the one to physically, you know, uh, uh, put harm to him. He didn't at all help him either. And so yeah, he plotted against his brother, right? And then going back here in the middle of verse 28, it says, but at the last shall he fall through the sword himself. Right now, speaking on Domitian, okay, he was assassinated. Right? It says Domitian was assassinated on September 18th, 96, in a conspiracy by court officials. Okay. And so yeah, he ultimately, they all ended up dying painful or violent deaths. Okay. It says, verse 29, and whereas thou sawest two feathers under the wings passing over the head that is on the right side. All right, those two feathers is talking about Titus and Domitian, which is the last of the 12. It says, it signifieth that these are they whom the highest hath kept unto their end. All right, it says, this is the kingdom, this is the small kingdom and full of trouble, as thou sawest. Okay, that small kingdom, again, going from the top of this chapter, that small kingdom was mentioned to be ultimately the Flavian dynasty. All right, which they did a lot, of madness in their lifetimes, and a lot was going on during the times that they was ruling. Okay, let's see here. All right, so now the chapter pretty much transitions. Let me see where we're at on the time. Okay, the chapter pretty much transitions into, Yahushai, coming back, all right, to judge, all right, in the last days. So continuing on here in verse 31, it says, and the lion whom thou sawest rising up out of the wood and roaring and speaking to the eagle and rebuking her for her unrighteousness with all the words which thou hast heard, this is the anointed, which that anointed is Yahushua, right? Which the highest hath kept for them and for their wickedness unto the end. He shall reprove them and shall upbraid them with their cruelty. So for their acts, Yahushua, of course, is gonna come back, and that's the spirit, because in the following chapter, 2nd Esdras 13, right, it talks about how the Lord, is going to come, during, the redemption time, all right, World War III. During that time, he's going to come back, with the chariots and utterly destroy the armies of this world, of this time. Okay, but that's going to come in the future, of course, right? And so it all ties in because Esau is the end of the world, all right, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay, all right. It says, and a precept to that, what we just read is Daniel 2:44. All right, it says, for he shall set them before him alive in judgment, and shall rebuke them and correct them. Okay, all right. It says, verse 34, for the rest of the people shall he deliver with mercy, and those that have been pressed upon my borders, and he shall make them joyful until the coming of the day of judgment, whereof I have spoken unto thee from the beginning. Okay, so we're hoping and praying for that day to come, as we see the day approaching. We already know, the prophecies and everything that's going on in the earth right now, all right, is ushering in the day of judgment. Okay, the signs of the seasons and times let us know that we're in those times. Okay, the people, when it says my people, that's talking about the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, and we're going to be joyful when the Lord returns. Okay, it says verse 35, and we should be able to finish it, because it's pretty much a narrative from here on. So it says, this is the dream that thou sawest, and these are the interpretations.
It's like, you remember that dream you saw? I'm finna explain it to you. This is what it's talking about. If this has not happened with you, you have no business teaching.
Yeah, man. I mean, when it comes to the dreams, some brothers get dreams, other brothers don't really have too much dream, too much. But or brothers, women might get a dream, a vision, and tell it to them and break it down to, get it broken down to, right? So Ezra was getting that dream broken down to him, right? It says verse 36, thou only hast been meet to know this secret of the highest. So at that time, he was pretty much, on the earth, the prophet that the Lord was dealing with, on that level, because there's levels to this thing. Everybody wants to be, you know what I mean, or either disregard order or just be the top person. There's levels to this thing.
The Bible is for the prophets. Everybody else just got one.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You got them one-liners, Laquan. You got them down packed.
That's it.
That's right. Okay, so verse 37, it says, therefore, and we already got the precept to that. Actually, we already got the precept in Matthew 13. It says, verse 37, it says, therefore, write all these things that thou hast seen in a book and hide them.
Man, can you get Habakkuk 2 in the NLT real quick?
Con, I got you. All right. You just want me to start from the top?
Verse 2.
Verse 2, okay. All right, this is Habakkuk 2:2. And Yahweh Shemel Shai answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it.
Get the NLT version.
Okay. Habakkuk 2, verse 2 in the NLT, it says, then the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tables, so that a runner can carry the correct message to others.
Right. That runner is carrying the correct message to others. He's breaking down the scriptures correctly to the congregation. Period, point blank. That's what I'm saying, because that's one thing about prophecy. You can get it wrong. But then prophecy is made, that's what I'm saying. It's only a certain man that can give you the understanding on those prophecies. And that's a man of the Lord. It says, so a runner, which is the prophet, can take the correct message. Not no jive time turkey shit. You know what I'm saying? Well, if you think about it and then you do it, and then it was in your forehead and in your hand. No, nigga. No.
Right.
Esau is going to try to put an RFID microchip in your hand or in your forehead so that you can continue to be in his society, in his world, which is a crumbling world because the house is fucking divided.
Yep.
And that's the way they're going to try to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord is going to squash that shit. So if you out there wondering what the Bible is talking about, that's it. Go ahead.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. It says, oh, that was, you want me to keep on Habakkuk, or that's it? That's all you wanted?
That was all I wanted on that. Yeah, I'll leave 3 + 3 = 33 ass niggas. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Well, the Lord's gonna shut them up. You know what I mean? The Lord's gonna shut them up because when they try to treat the MOTB like the jump shot, okay, and try to prove, look, see, this ain't it. I'm gonna go ahead and take it myself. Then they're gonna be, you know, it's gonna be some, it's gonna be some niggas that, you know what I mean?
Pride. That's what I'm saying. Nigga gonna surrender to the white man with pride.
Yeah, to show you that it ain't as bad as we say it is. All right.
Yeah, I'll say then when that noisome sword hits you, yeah, then when that sword hits you, you're gonna realize you messed up, and then all you can do is wait for destruction at that point.
Mm-hmm. Con.
You got it.
Yeah. All right. Verse 37. Read that already. Verse 38. It says, and teach them to the wise of the people.
To the wise of the people. Are all the people wise? Absolutely not. Absolutely the fuck not.
Right.
There's more stupid people on the planet than anything else.
Of course.
You got it.
If everybody was wise, then wisdom wouldn't be said to be more valuable than rubies. All right, because everybody don't have it. You know. So it says, whose hearts thou knowest may comprehend and keep these secrets. So we know that it was a small number of people that basically was going to get the breakdown. All right, that was going to get the explanation of what Ezra saw, and that's for the men that you see breaking the scriptures down. Now it's up to you as a listener to believe the report or not. Like you said, or not, right? But as the scripture says, Lord, who hath believed our report? Get that real quick.
And keeping those secrets, meaning keeping them as in the understanding, not changing it. You know what I'm saying? The Lord said, I will keep those that keep my ways in the hour of temptation. You see? So those secrets that we kept, even though we broadcast them to the world, is that we didn't change it. We got the understanding. We didn't budge. With no God found in our mouth, and we not letting no man take our crown.
Mm-hmm.
You see? IUIC would love for us to be like, you know what? Maybe the microchip ain't the mark of the beast. But it'll never happen because it fucking is.
Right. Yeah. It's simple, man. Everything don't got to be complicated. Esau try to complicate shit and make things ambiguous and gray areas. The Lord, Spirit of the Lord don't operate like that.
At all.
Yeah. All right. Continuing on here. It says, verse 39, back in 2nd Esdras 12. But wait thou here thyself yet 7 days more, that it may be showed thee whatsoever it pleaseth the highest to declare unto thee. And with that, he went his way. All right. So he was commanded basically to write down, the things that he saw. Okay, but only give it to those, you know what I mean, that were wise, right? And then also wait 7 more days, all right, because the Lord was pleased with him, how he conducted himself at talking about Ezra and everything like that, to the point where he said, you know what, I'm gonna give you some more. This is as we go into the last set of visions that Ezra got, we see chapter 13, 14, 15, 16. These are all, I would say, we go into these scriptures the most out of all of the chapters in 2nd Esdras. I know we go into 2nd Esdras 9 a lot. We bring out 2nd Esdras 6 and 9, but really chapter 13, chapter 15, chapter 16. That's going into, the last days of the last days on a high level, you know. So it says, verse 40, and it came to pass when all the people saw that the 7 days were passed, and I not come again into the city, they gathered them all together from the least unto the greatest, and came unto me and said, what have we offended thee? And what evil have we done against thee that thou forsakest us and sittest here in this place? Because remember, he was out in the field, you know, and they were like, yo, like, you're our leader. Like, you know what I'm saying? You can't just forsake us, right? It says, for of all the prophets, thou only art left us as a cluster of the vintage, and as a kindle in a dark place, and as a haven or ship preserved from the tempest. So they understood, like,
We
Ezra was,
need you, baby.
yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? And when the Lord, and that shows you that the prophets are invaluable. You see, but Jake is not in the spirit today. They really should be searching. They should be really searching, like, for real, for real. That's how you know this place gotta go. This place gotta go, man. This place gotta go. All right, because as much word and edification is going out, it's for a small, only for such a small percentage, all right, of people that's actually really taking this thing to heart and taking it serious. You know what I mean? Like life or death serious. But that's okay. Once people start getting put to death, even before then, people are going to start asking questions and try to, but hey, there's going to be a famine of the hearing of the word. So hey, you better get this while you got it, while you can, man. Right?
Man.
But it says, verse 43, are not the evils which are come to us sufficient? If thou forsake us, how much better had it been for us if we also had been burned in the midst of Zion? Yeah, they were like, damn, if you leave us, we might as well have just gotten burnt up when Jerusalem was, was was burnt the first time,
We might
you
as
know?
well have been cooked.
Yeah. Imagine if Jake was in this spirit today of these people here. You know what I
Ugh.
mean? But they're not, right? It says, for we are not better than they that died here. And they wept with a loud voice. Then answered I them and said, be of good comfort, O Israel, and be not heavy, thou house of Jacob. For the highest hath you in remembrance, and the mighty hath not forgotten you in temptation. So you can see, comparing Ezra's disposition or demeanor or sentiment or mindset, all right, Ezra's mindset in the first like chapter, second chapter of the book to now you can see Ezra's exuding more confidence. The Lord's comforted him, so he's able to convey that to the rest of the body,
Mhm.
you know. All right. And he's not even done getting all the visions he's going to get. Right. It says, neither am I departed from you, but I am come into this place to pray for the desolation of Zion, and that I might seek mercy for the low estate of your sanctuary. And now go your way home, every man. And after these days will I come unto you. So the people went their way into the city, like as I commanded them. But I remained still in the field 7 days, as the angel commanded me, and did eat only in those days of the flowers of the field, and had my meat of the herbs. Okay, so yeah, he stayed 7 more days. So I would say about four weeks of fasting. He pretty much did, you know. Um, that was the end of the chapter. We already know chapter 13, for those of us who gone into this chapter is going to be a heavy prophetic chapter. So yeah, man. Let me see if got any precepts here. Nope. Well, did you have any points, Laquan? I read all the ones. Oh, just for brothers, individuals taking notes concerning Second Ezra's 12 and 24. Another precept you can write down is Isaiah 29:3, and also Jeremiah uh, 6. you know, verses 3, 4, and 5. Okay. But the point was made, the points that I wanted to bring out was made, I should say. Did
Yeah,
you
I
have
don't have
anything?
nothing else.
Okay, cool. So yeah, man. Hey, Lord willing, Abaratazah, this is edifying lesson. With that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Achak Wadash, double honors to the apostles, and that was a great millstone. Peace and salutations to the elect. Shalom.
Shalom.